any specific plans. We just said, well, we want to create a show. What could that be? And they said, can we create all new music for it? And I said, absolutely. and then we just started down that road. We would sit in coffee shops and just have these long conversations about whatever was on our mind as artists at the time, what themes we all were sharing. And some of the themes that really came forward were really centered around, I've always thought it's interesting the parallels between the ocean and the mountains, and how the mountains are kind of our stand-in for the ocean. They kind of serve the same purpose of this immense thing that is so much bigger than we are, that has so much power behind it. And for Paperbird, that they kind of felt a very similar idea. They love the mountains. Many of them live in the mountains, and then they also love the ocean, and they love when they're on tour to be able to visit the ocean and spend time at the ocean. So you'll hear these themes in the show where water and the ocean comes through in the production. But as we created, what we did was we just allowed those themes to kind of permeate our consciousness, and they started writing songs, and they started sending kind of demo tracks back of what they were creating, and then we would get together in their living room and listen to them play and talk about, there were a couple songs that never made it into the show because they didn't quite feel like they fit, and then they replaced them with other things. And so the experience that you'll have is I'm always interested to hear how different people experience a show like this, because so often people tell me that the story is so clear in this work. For me, I'm like, awesome. I don't know, but I think what it is that each of these, the way the whole work is built is that you bring your own experience to it, your own experience of the world, and allow, and that story will make sense to you however you want it to. And
okay, I'm sorry, but I've got a question. Do you see yourself as a storyteller?
Gosh, in an abstract way. In an abstract way. I almost all of my work has some kind of narrative thread that I've built into it for my personal reality, just so that I can make sense of how I'm creating the work. But I don't try to make that overly apparent. I don't expect you to know what was in my head, in other words. So, but I might have some vague, but what I've come to know is that people bring their understanding of it, and bring discoveries for me all the time when they share with me what they saw in work. I think it's a lot like poetry in that respect. Poetry is built in a way to allow you to bring your own personal experience to it. Poetry wouldn't be nearly as great if you didn't have the ability to do that, right? So it's just giving enough information for you to build your own picture around it.
Well, I want to get a sense of who's here, if you don't mind. So is everybody here a dance lover? Raise your hand if you came because you're like, oh boy, yeah. And for everybody else, you intend to leave as a dance lover tonight, right? Well, when the first few people were coming in, we were talking a little bit about the last time you were here, and you performed with the Baroque Chamber Orchestra. And that was the first time I had seen your company. And I felt that I was watching a new art form. It wasn't anything I had seen before. And so I'm wondering, for some of you, if you're coming in to see classical ballet, I don't think that's what's going to happen, is it? Okay.
No.
All right, unless it's really different than it was last time. And the way you seem to be able to make the dance form contemporary and relevant to the audience and to engage us in what's going on, even if it's not a narrative, I'm assuming is very specific plan. I wonder how you describe your company and the dance that you are doing.
The basic structures are classical ballet. The dancers start every single day with a classical ballet class. It's the same kind of class that Colorado ballet dancers will take every single day. But that is what we are working to do, is just use that as a structure. I like to think of it the same way that a painter might go to school for many years, and in that process in school they will learn to paint like the masters. They'll learn the techniques and the skills behind composition and so forth to be able to do that. But in practice, the work that they're going to create as a professional artist is so often not that. They have all that knowledge and skill, but it's just there as a basis to be able to achieve new things and explore their art form in new ways. That's exactly what we're doing with dance. And that really goes into, we're involved in a major transformation of our organization right now. And part of that is not only moving the professional company to a new space in downtown Denver, a new rehearsal space, but also in rebranding the organization. And so the professional company is going to become Wonderbound. And the whole choice behind this was to say ballet doesn't describe what we do in the end. What we're engaged in is creating experiences that bring any and every kind of art form you can imagine together. We regularly work with not only musicians, but visual artists, with poets, you name it, we'll explore possibilities. And so it's really about creating these new experiences. Like you said, it was experiencing a new art form, right? And that's really the goal. So what we're working on doing is redefining what we are and how we describe ourselves to the community, because ballet in itself doesn't sufficiently describe the experience that you're going to have.
So are you curious about what you've come to see? I think that you should be, but remember the name Wonderbound, because I know that you're going to become groupies and we don't want to lose track of you. So if we're looking in the paper and looking for Ballet Nouveau and wondering where you are, Wonderbound.
Yes, and there'll be more information in your program, as well as there's information out in the lobby to learn more about the work that we're doing and the space that we're moving into downtown. And because one thing that's really important to us is that the work that we create and the way that we create it is really about connecting with people, connecting with all kinds of people, and really broadening the conversation about community, about sharing. Dance, if you look at where dance comes from, dance is fundamentally a social art form. It was not created to be performed on a stage. Dance was not a spectator sport, right? And that's what we're really trying to work toward, is working back to that experience. Ballet's fundamentals come from ancient folk dance that the aristocracy took and redefined and refined and gave the steps names and codified it and so forth, but it really came from folk dance. And that's really what we're working to do with our art form, is bringing it back to that idea, stripping away all the pretense, and really just holding on to the technical aspects of it to explore new ways of sharing.
I think so. Do I get to laugh tonight?
Absolutely.
Oh, good. Because that was one of the things that really caught me off guard too. I haven't giggled through too many ballets, and I was like, wow, you get to engage this way. I want to make sure that if any of you have questions or things you would like to bring up, you have the opportunity. Is there anybody who would like to ask a question, or want to bring up a point about dance? Or do you mind if I just hand this to you?
I just wondered how you started your career.
I grew up in Arizona, and I found my way to dance through choir. I was actually in the Tucson Voice Course when I was in elementary school, and then from there went into choir in junior high, and it was a show choir, and so that was kind of my first exposure to dance. And I thought that I wanted to go into musical theater. That was kind of the journey I was on, and so I started taking dance lessons, and I started taking acting classes and so forth. What I discovered was, well, as much as I wanted to be a great singer, I was a really good chorus member, but nothing better than that. So that wasn't going to get me too far in that reality, and I also would get way too nervous in my theater classes. I would get up in front of a group of people and forget my lines and just stumble around the scene. So that wasn't working out well. But when I danced, I felt completely at home. So it kind of found me in that way. And so I let the other things fall away and really became focused on my ballet training. And then that led to my professional career all the way to here. So.
Lovely. Someone else with a question? Yes.
I was interested, I did see you the last time, and I wondered, there's no toe shoes anywhere? Are there ever any, or is that no?
Our dancers are all classical ballet dancers, so they all have point shoes and they all have them around. We do the Nutcracker each year with our school. Our production has over 50 students in it, as well as the professional company. And so they will have them on for the Nutcracker, obviously. And once in a while, we'll do a work here and there with them. But for me personally, as a choreographer, in my evolution it was an aesthetic choice for me. What I've always thought of ballet as is this kind of superhuman form. It's kind of, opera is the same way. I mean, when you experience opera, the fact that these singers can do these incredible things with their voices, it just completely floors you. And it's the same way with classical ballet. It all lives up here, and these feats that they can achieve in point shoes are really incredible. I've always been interested in what I like to call it is the idea of creating work that's ultra-human. So instead of superhuman, it's ultra-human, which means we're kind of grabbing onto maybe more of those primal aspects of our reality. Those things, I'm really interested in those things that we try to hide from other people. And those things that we don't like to let people see in public. Maybe only the people that are closest to you, you allow them to see those vulnerabilities, those things that make you unique, right? Those are the things that are most interesting about people. If you read a book about terribly normal people, it wouldn't be a very good book to read, right? And that's kind of really what I'm interested in, is kind of climbing around in all that complexity that makes us who we are. And so the point shoes, by taking them away, kind of gets them grounded into the earth a little more, where that's kind of just where I like to live.
Interesting. You know, it's really interesting hearing you talk, no surprise, but I have never looked at a couch the same way after I did, after seeing Ballet Nouveau. And for those of you who did not see it, the dancers danced in, around, through, under the cushions, and so on. So I'm thinking, primal level of things that we wouldn't normally be hearing in public, super fun. But I think in all that you're saying, I still see that tremendous need to connect with the audience and bring the audience in and engage. Does anyone else have something they'd like to bring up or a question? Something back here? Sure.
Is the new Wonderbound venue going to be a performance as well as a rehearsal space?
It's a great question. The goal is for it to ultimately become a performance space as well. That's kind of a long way off because it'll require some structural redesign of the building, and it can ultimately be an incredible performance space. And what we envision for it is for it to be a flexible performance space. So we would be able to set it up in a black box style traditional theater, but then we would also be able to set it up in the round so that we have the audience surrounding the dancers. We'd be able to have it as an event space, set it up in a tennis court fashion, you name it. So that's kind of the long-term vision, and that's at least 3 to 5 years out.
Everybody, we're over here with a question.
So where do you find your dancers? Is there an application out there that you filled out?
Are you playing? Wear your toe shoes. You don't need it. You do need a couch, a very flexible couch.
I could use that one.
That's a good question, and we've approached, you might be realizing that we kind of do things differently than a lot of companies, and that even goes into how we find our dancers. We don't have auditions because we had an audition when my wife and I first took the directorship. There was an audition already scheduled, and so we went ahead because we knew that there were already dancers that were planning on coming to this audition and so forth. We went ahead and had the audition, and that was right when we had first become directors, and it was one of the worst experiences I've ever had, because I felt so horrible that there were 80 people that had shown up for this audition, and we had one position for one male dancer available. And there was a room of 80 dancers from all over the country that had flown there, that had gotten hotel rooms, had all of this, and most of them didn't even have an opportunity to get a job. I said, I'm never going to do this again, because that's not fair. I mean, dancers don't make a lot of money, and it's not easy to engage in that process. So what we try to do is create a more personal process. So first of all, if somebody is interested in dancing with us, we want them to be interested in dancing with this company because of the kind of work that we're doing. So we wait for them to reach out to us. And then when they do reach out to us, we ask them to send their resume and dance photos, as well as a dance reel. We usually ask them to put it on YouTube and send it to us. It's more convenient for us. And then we look at that, we look at their background, we might talk to some of their references, and then if we're interested, then we talk to them on the phone, and then we ask them to come and spend at least 2 days with the professional company. So they not only take a class, but they actually work in the studio with the dancers, and so that they can get to know the company can get to know them, we can start to get a sense of who they are before we decide whether we want to take that journey together. And because it's as much about the dancer auditioning the company as it is the company auditioning the dancer. And what that creates is you end up with a group of dancers that are there because they want to be there, not because they were looking for a job and, hey, I landed one, right?
We're looking forward to seeing this company of dancers. One thing I wanted to make sure that we mentioned tonight is, because of the way your company began, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I really appreciate the commitment that you and the company have to bringing the art out throughout the metro Denver area. For some of the established companies who have been downtown Denver, they have outreach efforts to come on out, but I think that your company grew up in a different way, so you sort of started out, worked your way in, worked your way back out. But dance is the same thing as breathing, as walking, as talking, as sitting and being in your family. And it feels that way, the way you have developed. Would you have any comment about that?
Yes, I would absolutely agree. And I'm really proud of that. The way we create our work, it's designed to be able to travel. And this is a big community, and it's and we really love being able to travel around and perform in all these different venues. And it's kind of what has helped define us in a lot of respects. It's not, we're not asking you to necessarily come to this specific place to see us, right? It's saying, hey, these are all the different places that we're going to perform. And what I'm working on right now is also expanding that repertoire. One thing that I've been really interested in is some of the smaller venues in our community that are really beautiful venues that aren't necessarily designed specifically for dance. Like this stage is a wonderful stage for dance, the size of it and so forth, as well as the Newman Center, the L.E. Calkins, Lakewood Cultural Center. There's a lot of wonderful spaces that are great for dance. But then there's all these other amazing spaces that are a lot smaller, and I really love those small venues. And so I'm working on developing new repertoire for the company that is designed for those smaller spaces, so that we can readily perform in them, and that we're not compromising the experience. Like this show would not fit on a small stage very well, and it wouldn't be a great experience for you on a small stage. So that's one thing that I'm really interested in continuing to evolve right now.
Well, I want to make sure that we have plenty of time to get everybody into your seats. So I'm going to close with a quote from one of your dancers. This is what Meredith, is it Strathmeyer?
Yes.
Had to say. She said, "There's something extra special about dancing right next to the musicians on stage. And when you're lucky, you lock eyes with them. What a treat to be in the moment, sharing your craft with a group as equally passionate about theirs. All of Garrett's signatures are there, but he played with some new lifts and movement that just makes you gasp. I can't wait. Wonderbound." Thank you very much.
Thank you.